Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it's the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the Make It Out Alive broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, let's get right into it. Hopefully everyone's doing well. If you live locally here in southern Oregon, where I'm at in Klamath County, the city of Chiloquin, you are probably experiencing some pretty significant snowfall and other natural disaster effects on your life. Maybe no electricity, maybe no water, maybe no internet. So hopefully you have planned ahead to make it out alive. If you'll recall, last week's broadcast came out on Saturday, the day before we had a significant snowfall, and hopefully it was able to help some people out. If not, maybe we'll get it this time. Let's get right into our news report, though. Let's go here. Where do we start off? We are at Lakeview, Illinois. Lakeview is a neighborhood in Chicago, so Chicago, Illinois. A man was attacked with a baseball bat in Lakeview on Wednesday afternoon, Chicago police said. The incident happened as the victim was sitting in his car in the 700 block of Sheridan Road around 7:13 p.m. So if you'll recall, one of the things we're discussing, and it's going to be a constant theme in this show, is situational awareness. What is situational awareness? Situational awareness is being aware of your surroundings and what's going on around you. Why is that important? Well, let's see. The man was sitting in his car. The 30-year-old man said a man and a woman approached him, Chicago police said. They apparently drug him out of his own car and started to attack the victim with a baseball bat. So the man started to attack the victim with a baseball bat while the woman allegedly kicked and pepper sprayed him, police said. So imagine that. You're sitting in your car, maybe having a coffee break or watching some TikToks or whatever it is you're doing. Unfortunately, you haven't we don't know, the story doesn't exactly tell us, but you haven't locked your door and rolled your window up. What happens? Some guy and a woman walk up, drag you out of your car, pepper spray you in the eyes, start shouting profanities at you, and start kicking you in the head Goodfellas style while the other guy goes upside your head with a baseball bat, all in broad daylight while people are probably staring and taping it with their phones. I mean, this is horrible. Imagine this is happening to you. 1 minute, you're catching the latest update on what's going on with some celebrity and their cheating scandal, and the next thing you know, you're getting your head kicked in and baseball batted and pepper sprayed in broad daylight in Chicago. The victim was taken to the hospital where he was treated and released. No one is in custody. Chicago detectives are investigating, it says. So basically, it sounds like they're probably going to get away with it. Can you imagine what that's like? You're sitting there 1 minute just looking at your phone or having a coffee, and the next thing you know, you're pepper sprayed, screamed at, smacked upside the head with a ball bat, and kicked in the head while you're rolling on the ground, screaming in agony. If you've ever been pepper sprayed, it can be a terrifying event. Typically, when you get pepper sprayed, especially if it's a good shot right in the eyes, you're going to go blind for 12 to 15 minutes. You're not going to be able to see anything. You're just flying blind. So now all you've got is the audio of these people probably yelling. Most of the violent assaults I've seen, and I've seen more than my fair share of them, for some reason people like to yell and scream obscenities while they do it. So you're on the ground getting your head kicked in, and a guy with a baseball bat is beating your head in, and the woman is kicking you. And it doesn't say that anything was stolen. So I don't know what the actual motive was here, but situational awareness tip number one, I used to get, or I still do occasionally, get laughed at by friends or family when I tell them, as soon as you get in your car, roll up the windows and lock the doors. Even if you're warming up the car in your own driveway, you never know. This guy was just sitting there 1 minute in his car. The next minute, he's blind, screaming in agony on the ground while he's getting walloped and beaten with a ball bat. What a shame. There's a reason they call it Chirac. Now, I used to go, years ago, I would visit Chicago. I love that town. This is going back a few years, but before it really got crazy, Chicago was a great place to visit. So when we would get to town, there were two places we would go for pizza, Giordano's and Lou Malnati's. Amazing Chicago-style pizza. If you've never had it, they're the two great pizza styles in America are, and I know we have a number of foreign listeners, or listeners from around the world, we'll call them abroad. Foreign may seem derogatory to some folks. Listeners abroad. In America, there are the two primary styles of pizza, I would say, are the Chicago style and New York style. There's also St. Louis style, which is absolutely delicious in its own right. We'll cover that another day. New York style is the style of pizza most people are used to seeing. The large, thin slice, cheese, got a little bit of crisp to it, but a thin slice and a nice crispy crust. Chicago style couldn't be any different. It's basically more of a pie, and I'm not going to go too much further describing it because purists will not agree with how I put it because I'm not a connoisseur of pizzas. I just know what I like to eat. That being said, there's no real way in my mind to fully compare the two because they're so different. They're absolutely amazing in their own rights, but that's where we would go, Giordano's and Lou Malnati's. I'm sure there are plenty of other amazing places, and I'm not being paid to plug anyone. What else would we do there? We would get, so if you've ever had a Chicago dog, we would go to this place called Portillo's, and you would get a Chicago dog, which was a special type of bun. I think it had it was almost like a Kaiser roll or something. It had seeds on it. And then there would be tomatoes and a pickle and some kind of pepper and then like celery salt and mustard. It was absolutely delicious. I love a good hot dog. I'm a simple man with simple pleasures, and a Chicago dog is one of them. Just know this. There is no putting ketchup on a Chicago dog or any hot dog, in my opinion, of any kind. If someone puts ketchup on a hot dog, you need to be mistrustful of that person. I'm not saying they're automatically a commie, but you never know. Okay? All right. That being said, the Riverwalk was amazing too. I don't know what it's like now. When I Googled the Riverwalk a couple of years ago, the first story that popped up was a dead body floated up to the shore of the Riverwalk. So if you've never been to Chicago, again, I don't know what it's like now, but it was an absolutely amazing, beautiful city. The Riverwalk is like this mile and a half walk along the Chicago River. There's all kinds of outdoor eating and shops. It is just amazing. You would get the thing I remember the most from the Riverwalk itself wasn't food, but a snack. I think it was called Garrett's. It was popcorn. It was a blend of like the cheese dust coated and caramel popcorn, and it was absolutely amazing. It may not sound like a good flavor combination, but in practice or in reality, it was absolutely amazing. And they must have used, the thing that struck me at the time was they must use some particular species or type of corn because the popped corn with the caramel and the cheese flavor, it was very bulbous and round. It was just a really good flavor. The whole thing was very well done. Enjoyed it quite a bit. Again, I don't know if they're even still in business or not. I hope so. They provided a good product. But anyway, be aware, folks, when you get in your car, lock that door, roll up the window, and keep as they say, some folks say, keep your head on a swivel. Be looking around because this poor guy was just sitting there eating a sandwich or watching his phone, and the next thing you know, he's being brutally assaulted in the streets of Chirac. Our next story, January 22nd, 2025, coming out of Florida. By Tuesday afternoon, Northwest Florida was mostly covered in record-breaking snowfall, and it was still snowing. The National Weather Service reported total snowfall at 9.8 inches in Milton. Milton is, if you're not familiar with the Panhandle, Milton is about 20-30 minutes or so away from Pensacola, which is also in the Panhandle. Beautiful white sand beaches in Pensacola. Absolutely wonderful. Listened to a revival band, Three Dog Night there once, many years ago. I think the rest of the band had been replaced, but Chuck Negron was the lead singer. He was still, I believe, unless memory fails me, and he was singing that night. Really nice. Good memory. This broke the state's previous record. They got 9.8 inches, okay? Last 2 weeks ago, if that, a week and a half ago, they got 9.8 inches. The previous record was 4 inches in 1954, which also occurred in Milton. Now, the Weather Channel says this was an unprecedented event, a likely once-in-a-lifetime event, yada, yada, yada. Pensacola, which more people are familiar with, Pensacola, Florida, they got 8.9 inches there, shattering the previous record in Pensacola. Their previous record of snowfall was 3 inches. When was this record set? In 1895. Okay? Thank goodness global warming is keeping that snow at bay. Otherwise, we'd be in serious trouble here. Okaloosa County, they got up to 9 inches according to the National Weather Service. Okay, now, what is the point? Imagine you're in Florida. Now, for those of you not in the States, Florida is basically a tropical environment down on the Gulf of America, and they do not get snow very frequently, okay? All of a sudden, you wake up one day, it snows nonstop for 2 days straight, and now you have nearly 10 inches of snow in a place that is not equipped to handle snow. What happened? During a critical 24-hour period from 9 a.m. Tuesday to 9 a.m. Wednesday, emergency services, EMS, responded to 246 service calls, while Escambia County is where Pensacola is, Escambia County Fire Rescue handled 57 emergency calls. On Thursday, the county reported that from 7 a.m. Tuesday to 1 p.m. Thursday, that's 54 hours, emergency communications dispatched 960 calls for service throughout the county, including 568 emergency medical services calls and 392 fire rescue calls. Obviously, they were urging people to stay at home. What do we learn? Okay, the practical aspect for me right off the bat is driving. The article goes into some length about how roads were just decimated. There was obviously a thin layer of ice covered by snow. If you live in an area like where I am, where snow is a frequent occurrence, you know that led to very dangerous, difficult driving conditions. That's around people that drive in snow every year. We get snow. 3 inches here is absolutely, you wouldn't even know it's snowing. That's a Wednesday. And people drive horribly in it because they don't slow down. They're not defensively driving. They're not prepared for this. Now imagine you're in Florida. I don't even know when the last time they got snow, but the last time they got that much snow was 1895. You want to talk about crashes and, here, what do we have? In a 24-hour period, Walton County Sheriff's Office had responded to more than 20 traffic crashes and 30 disabled vehicles by Wednesday afternoon. That's 24 hours. 20 crashes, 30 disabled vehicles. That's what they responded to. Who knows what else took place? So what is the point? In preparedness for this, you may say, what could I have done? If you're prepared and you are aware of the risks and dangers, when something like that happens, an unprecedented almost event in your lifetime, it'd been 2 or 3 generations since they got that much snow before. What do? You stay home. There's no need to be on the road. Nothing is that important unless it's a medical emergency, in which case, you got to make your decisions. But in general, going to work or going out and getting a Big Mac is not that important. Stay home. A lot of that could have prevented if people, most likely could have been prevented if people would stay home. That's part of the situational awareness. It's not always taking some big heroic action or having a go bag or whatever else. Sometimes it's just making a good common sense choice. Now, question. This is something that's been on my mind, and I know it's been on other people's minds as well. I've talked with people, and you hear this on social media too, especially in the U.S., tipping culture has gotten out of control. Now, I'm going to lay out a brief scenario for you, and we're going to discuss it after the break. What would you do? Let's say you go to a restaurant, not a fancy restaurant, just a burger joint, a taco joint, whatever. Let's say you walk in, you order, the cashier messes up your order, or cashier, I don't know what we're supposed to call them, if that's the politically correct term or not, but I'm going to use the word cashier. Let's say the cashier processes your order, you pay, they overcharge you, and then get your order wrong, and on top of that, demand a tip. What would you do? We'll talk about it after the break. More Make It Out Alive with Sam Wilson after this.
Want to get your business noticed? Sponsor a show on KKFO Gold Country Radio on 103.3 FM and create awareness through on-air announcements, our online stream at goldcountryradio.org, and our podcasts that live on forever. Your message reaches a broad local audience while also targeting listeners who choose to tune in to the shows they love. Plus, we promote your sponsorship across our website and social media. For more information, email goldcountryradio@gmail.com. Call 541-238-6989 or visit goldcountryradio.org. Gold Country Radio, your message heard locally and beyond.
You're listening to the MOA broadcast with Sam Wilson. Will you make it out alive? Okay, folks, we are back with the second half of the MOA broadcast. Let's pick up where we left off. Now, before the break, I related a story or asked a question. What would you do if you went to a restaurant, a taco joint, a burger joint, whatever, and they overcharged you or got your total wrong, whatever, made the mistake, and then on top of that demanded or strongly suggested you should leave me a tip? What would you do? I'll tell you a true story. This happened to me recently. I'm not going to name the restaurant. We're not looking to drag anybody through the mud, anything like that. But I went to a place, I placed my order, I paid. I could tell something was wrong. The total was too high. And I'm like, well, hang on, that doesn't seem right. So I'm like, don't go ahead and they were very busy. It was a busy day and I could see everyone was running at full speed. So I'm like, just whenever we get to my food, let's replace it. And so they overcharged me by $10, okay, or $9, excuse me. So whenever we were done, I'm like, she's like, well, I've only got $8 in cash in singles. She opened the till and she only had 8 singles, and I'm $1 bills. I'm like, okay, just give me the 8. Why don't you just throw an extra handful of fries on in my order of fries? I love fries. I don't even care about it. Just keep the $1 and just put an extra handful or scoop of fries or whatever. And she goes, extra scoop of fries? You should be giving me a tip. And so she was not only upset that I guess she had made the mistake or whatever that I wanted my money back, that I was trying to come up with an amicable way of, why don't you just throw some extra handful of fries? That doesn't cost. I've run a food stand before. It doesn't cost much to do an extra handful of fries to make a happy customer. But the last thing you want to do, in my opinion, when you've made a mistake like that, is then say, well, you should be giving me that money as a tip. And this is a problem here in America. I can't say about the world abroad, but you go into these places now, you order a $4 or $5 coffee, which is insane on its own, for a latte or a breve, and then they want you to leave a tip for the person that just swivels the iPad around and you swipe your card, not even making change or anything. Some of them won't even take cash. I tried to pay with a $20 bill for a call. They're like, we don't accept cash. It's card, or you gotta pay through I forget the app they had, but I didn't have it. And the options for tip are like, okay, it's not like 10%, 20%. It starts 50%, $2,000, or you can give us a kidney for a tip. Just for making a coffee. Now, I mean, I got nothing against a good barista, but yeah, this is getting out of control, this tipping culture. So tell us what you would do in that situation. Write us at info@gearconvoy.com. Send us an email. Let us know if you have any tips or suggestions on things you'd like to hear covered. Again, that was info@gearconvoy.com. We love to hear from our listeners. Let's get into our next segment. Now, if you live here locally in Klamath County in the Klamath Basin, we have been going through a massive snowstorm for several days now. We're on the 4th day of being under siege by snow. It started, I believe, on Sunday evening. I can't remember exactly. But around Sunday evening, we started getting heavy snowfall. When I checked at the deepest point of it all, with a yardstick on a flat metal surface in my backyard, I got 13.5 inches of snow. Now, I don't know what they got in the nearest city, which is about 30, 35 miles away, but that's what I got as measured by a yardstick. I've got friends that are even more remote than me, 20, 30 miles further out. They said they got closer to 2 feet. Obviously, the higher you go up in elevation, we're at 4,200 feet here in Chi-Town, as they call Chiloquin sometimes. So this has been a big deal. Currently we have thousands, depending on where you go for your information, thousands without power, without electricity. I read everything, estimates everywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 to 13,000 had power in and out, and there may be several hundred or several thousand currently still without power for multiple days now. No internet, no heat if they heat with electricity. Trees are down, power lines are down, roads are slick. It's a mess. It really is. This leads right into the preparedness, just like what happened in Pensacola and Milton, Florida. Unfortunately, we did have a fatal accident here on the highway on, I believe, Sunday evening, took 2 lives. Horrible situation. And it's still snowing. It's still coming down out there. We're currently at about 26 degrees right now, but it was a couple of nights ago, it was getting down 16 and 19 degrees, so it's still not over with. And if your power is out, your water may be out, depending on your situation, whether you have a well or a generator or a pump, solar powered. There are a number of different options. Some cities have good generators hooked up to their water treatment plants, but the bottom line is all of this requires preparation. That takes us to a story, to a town. Let's go here. We're not going to name names. This is actually kind of sad. I'm not gonna make fun or jokes of any kind of this particular. This is a Facebook post, a lady asking for help. So this is not to be taken in a comedic fashion by any means. This is to illustrate what can happen if things don't go to plan. Here's her Facebook post. We'll leave her name and location out of it. After 4 days and nights with no power and no heat of any kind, 4 days. Ask yourself when the last time you've gone 4 days straight with no power and no heat of any kind in sub-freezing temperatures. No water, no way to cook or clean. We're at the end of our rope. Our cars are hopelessly buried, so we can't leave. We have 2 dogs and an ancient kitty, and we are all on the verge of freezing. Pacific Power keeps giving us projected times for having our power restored of 6 to 8 hours, but that's been happening for 4 days now. I know the crews are doing their very best. God bless them. I just wish I would have been given a more accurate assessment 3 days ago when we could have gotten out of here and gone to stay with friends in such and such, so on. That's a problem, folks. If you find yourself in that situation, you are in a bad spot, as this lady very well recognizes. She's got an issue on her hands. Her and her family and animals and whatever else they have going on there. So what is the point? The time to prepare is not 2 days. We had some warning before this storm. There was news, information, and weather alerts and so forth a couple of days, several days actually in advance, letting us know. But the question is, what are you going to do with that information? We'll jump right in here. A lot of people like lists of preparedness products, how to be ready. What exactly should I have? What should I have in my kit? I look at it a little bit different. If you want those lists and those kind of things, you can go online and find those easily. That's easy to find. I look at it like the number one, the jumping off point for me personally. And again, every expert is going to have a different way of looking at this, but you should be able to easily do 2 weeks without having to set foot outside your house. Have enough supplies and everything else so that you easily can do 2 weeks without setting foot outside your house. That includes enough food, enough water, other supplies, whatever else you need, the basics, including restroom facilities, to not have to leave your house, whether or not you have electricity and running water or not, for 2 weeks. Now, you may say, hey, you know what, that sounds kind of extreme. I don't want to put that much into it. Ask yourself, that lady, and this is by no means a unique situation. I looked on Facebook. I have Facebook for my business account, and I look in there. There must have been at least 10 or 15 other posts very similar to this. People that have not had power, which means no heat if they have electric heat, for days now. That is a big deal in these temperatures and being covered in snow. So you need to make those decisions beforehand. All of a sudden, being able to, if you would ask that lady, now that she's been without food, no water, no heat of any kind, and not being able to cook or clean, does being prepared for 2 weeks sound extreme? They've already done it for 4 days. This was yesterday this took place. She posted this. So I guess we're going on day 5 now. All of a sudden, 2 weeks doesn't sound so extreme. There are a number of ways you can approach this. The way I look at it and the way I talk about it whenever I speak with people, informally, just friends or family or whatever, instead of going just after a certain list or a certain type of gear, look at your daily routine. What is it you will need to continue that routine if all power and water were shut off? In quote-unquote survival, there's what's called the rule of threes, okay? You can go 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Now, obviously, those are rough, projections, but it gives you kind of an idea on the order of importance. The most important thing for them right now is not really food, even though I'm sure they're hungry. It's shelter, meaning being able to maintain your body temperature at a safe level, and then enough water because your body has to have water. And these are things that are easy to do. If you don't have if you have electric heat and you don't have wood, there are a number of different heating options you can look up. Indoor propane. I'm not going to give particular advice. Everyone has to find what works for them and then check it out and make sure it's safe. But there are a number of heating options, whether it's propane or kerosene, that can be made safe for indoor situations so that if you lose your electric heat, you're not in serious trouble. Now, they're buried with snow. They may have gotten up to 2 feet of snow or possibly more out there. If they're not young, healthy individuals digging out of that much snow, some people out here have driveways that are several hundred feet to a half mile long. Do you know how long it's going to take? It's not a feasible solution. All the snow dumped at once in a 36-hour period. So you got to prepare beforehand, and that means again, in my opinion, the way I look at it, 2 weeks is a minimum. If you can't do 2 weeks without literally setting foot outside of your home with no electricity and no water, you're not really prepared for much at all. And that doesn't require a big commitment or investment. Things like rice, coffee, beans, canned goods are easily procured over a couple of weeks or a couple of months time period to where you can easily have enough to support you and however many people in your family for 2 weeks. Easy. And let's not leave out the heavy hitter, Spam. If you're one of those people who looks down on Spam, you are going to get no mercy here. Spam is a fantastic product, in my opinion. I wouldn't want to eat it every single day. It's a very strong flavored product, has a lot of salt. But if you have a problem with Spam, just ask the folks in Hawaii how they feel about it. Spam was introduced in Hawaii during World War II. The soldiers brought it with them as part of their rations, and it quickly became very popular and very commonly used because it's a relatively cheap product. It preserves very well, and on Hawaii, where everything has to be imported, for the most part, fresh meat is very expensive. So you can find Spam on all kinds of meals there and around the world. I think it's a fantastic product on its own, but it's particularly for emergency preparedness and survival. Cans, either tins of Spam or the individual packaged servings, make great meals with eggs, rice, all kind of things, and they last a very long time. So very easy to cook. One of these days I'll get around telling a story about a backpacking trip I took with a bunch of city boys from Portland, Oregon, and they all laughed at my notion of having Spam in the morning, Spam and eggs while on the trail. Let me just put it like this. When they started taking their dehydrated or freeze-dried oatmeal with like 2 rock-hard blueberries and putting it over the stove and cooking it like some kind of diluted REI commercial, and then I started cooking up my Spam and eggs, they quickly converted and became believers. So that's another story for another day, though. Not to be overlooked, though. You need to plan for restroom facilities. And we're not going to get graphic or explicit here. You can do research online. If the water goes, you may not have toilet facilities. Disease can strike very quickly. This will be a subject for an internet search, but you need to plan ahead. If the sewage facilities no longer work or go down, you're going to have to take care of that yourself, and you don't want to be caught unawares on that front. That's all I'll say for that now. We'll get into that deeper at another time. Let's end on a light note. Let's go to New Hampshire. Where did we go? New Hampshire, there. Okay. Here we go. A Texas man ended up trapped on a cliff after he went into the New Hampshire wilderness with only a cell phone app as his guide. The New Hampshire. Okay, this is good. The hiker, a man from Whitney, Texas, had no flashlight, no compass, and no map, officials said. He was rescued Wednesday. When did this take place? This was in mid to late 2024. He had no flashlight, no compass, and no map, officials said. He was rescued Wednesday off the Great Gulf headwall after spending the night in a spot that he was not able to hike up or down. He was trapped on a cliff face here, according to the release. This predicament was compounded by the fact that he also did not possess any source of light. This is why I always include in survival kits a small flashlight. If you look, even my hollow-handled survival kits and knives on gearconvoy.com, they almost always include a small flashlight that puts out a very bright beam and a quality compass. You can fit that in the handle of my knives. You immediately have light and navigation. But let's get on. We're running out of time here. Moving forward, investigators say the 66-year-old man began hiking at 9:30 a.m. Tuesday with intentions of being picked up at the summit on Mount Washington. However, he made a wrong turn, sending him deeper into the wilderness, officials said. As he made his way into the Great Gulf Wilderness, he attempted to navigate his way to the summit of Mount Washington using only a cell phone app, officials said. It was reported to conservation officers that he followed his cell phone app to a location off trail where he became stranded. This is like the episode of The Office where the guy is driving his car and it's leading him into a lake, and his co-pilot is, no, turn, Michael, turn. And he drives into the water because he said, the computer is telling me to do it. So this guy literally walked himself into a spot where he could not get out of and couldn't see to navigate out of because his phone told him to. We talked about this with the dependence on cell phones. The hiker's partner placed a call for help, and with all the facts and circumstances. Now, get a load of this. The New Hampshire rescue team must not have been very pleased. When they called in with all the facts and circumstances, a decision was made to have the man stay the night, officials said. So this guy follows his phone. He gets lost in the woods. He calls for help, and they're like, you know what, bud, just take a time out. We'll pick you up in the morning. And that's what they did. They picked him up the next morning. They found the man stuck precariously about 1/10 of a mile off the trail. A mile is 5,280 feet. A tenth of that is about 528 feet or so. That means he was less than 2 football fields away from the trail and couldn't find himself out of there. I would probably be upset too. To show you how upset the New Hampshire SAR was, they posted a photo. They posted a photo on Facebook showing the hiker trapped among trees and shrubs on a steep rock wall, and I am looking at this photo right now. Is just some guy stuck on a rock wall. But they put this up on their Facebook, so hopefully he learned his lesson. And it ended Mountain Summit around 1:30 p.m. Officials said because of his lack of essential items and poor choices throughout the entirety of his hike, it has been recommended that he be billed for the expenses associated with the rescue, the state said. Details of the cost were not released. So I guess he better get his credit card ready. Okay, that's it, folks. Remember, prepare ahead of time. Don't wait for an emergency to dig your gear out and get all your crap out and realize you have made mistakes. Be ready beforehand. If you don't make it out alive, you won't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.